we'll start off with the how to create a .NET, how to build a .NET code. So what I have here is, I have a sample project. Okay, this is some project which is based on .NET and Angular. So you can see here I have the source code of a C# .NET source code with an Angular code. So I have, you can see the Angular code with the TypeScript code and the C# code. So in this example, in this session, we will basically build this particular code, both Angular and .NET, and then understand the CI concepts. Okay, so now what I need to do first is, I'll go back to now here in Jenkins, you can group the pipelines and the jobs into different group them into different views. So I can create a new view as a list view, or create the current jobs and everything, and I can give a name. So that helps you to organize your pipelines based on projects, based on technologies, and various conditions. So right now I created a view called webinar. I don't have any pipelines. So in order to create a new, Jenkins has two ways of creating CI pipelines. One is called a job, and another is a pipeline. So job is a standalone job. It can do one task. It can take a .NET code, build it, and generate the artifact. It can take Angular code and build it. But those are standalone jobs. So you cannot have build an Angular code and then build .NET code and deploy into Azure. You cannot have sequencing of the jobs. So that's where the pipeline comes in picture. Pipeline is more scripted pipeline, which is using Groovy language. We'll see a small demo of a pipeline here, but pipeline is used to link multiple jobs together, so pipeline what we'll do in this session is create a simple CI pipeline for a .NET code, and then follow it up with creating for an Angular code as two different jobs. And we'll use a pipeline Groovy script to individually invoke the Angular code, Angular pipeline, and the .NET pipeline one after the other, and then see how it works. So I'll explain the Groovy script, the stages, and then how the basic concepts behind that. So here, to start with the .NET code, I first select the new item, and let me give a name, example .NET. Let me give album viewer .NET .NET job. So I'm giving a name, and since it's a standalone job, I'm going to select a freestyle project. So if you're creating a pipeline, then we have to select a pipeline where you get a Groovy script. But right now I select a freestyle and click on OK. So now this is where this is the starting point of creating a job, and this is not script based. Is all you select the settings and then you add the task steps for it. So the first thing you look into is the trigger, the source code part. So here you're going to link your source code checkout or source code download task. So example, my source code is in Git. So I select Git, and then I go ahead and clone, copy the URL where I have to clone, and yeah. So once I paste, now how do you authenticate yourself how does the CI pipeline authenticate while connecting to the Git, right? So here you can create in Jenkins you can create credentials where you can mention either username, password, or you can go ahead and create at a global level or an individual for specific nodes, or you can create either a username mode or from key vault. So various settings. We'll use username with password here, and again all these other you can create a GitHub app and link it here on various other ways. Okay, I'm using username password. So I'll give my username here, and then I'll go ahead and enter a password, and this will be this will be saved. This will be saved in Jenkins, and you can use it in multiple pipelines and multiple jobs anywhere. So now here I selected a pipeline, so you can see I have multiple entries. So I'll select one of them, which what it indicates is whenever this job is trying to download the code, it will use these credentials to authenticate to GitHub and then download the code. So once I've specified that, next I'll specify whether you want whether you want to restrict the job from building only a particular branch. Example here, I'm saying only build the master branch, right? If I make it blank, any of the if a Git has any number of branches your Git code has, it will build for every commit of this repository. It will not be restricted to any branch, but you can restrict it to set of branches only if you want to control the number of builds. So next is so we have specified the Git repository. We specified go ahead and build it for all of them. Next comes the trigger part. The trigger is, do you want it to automatically trigger, or one is you can always manually trigger a build, job, or a pipeline. But here we are deciding, or we can decide what type of triggers you need. Either, when you say trigger, it is triggered remotely. Maybe you have any third party, maybe you have from GitHub, you can trigger whenever a GitHub commit happens. You can use this URL to go ahead and trigger from an external system. Example, it could be when a commit happens, or when you locally you want to just trigger a new build, so you can use this. And other way is, you can periodically you can schedule using cron schedule, which is basically it has its own syntax where you can specify run it once in a day, once in every alternate days of a week, 7 p.m. every day. You can schedule that here where it automatically picks up and runs. And other way is using the GitHub polling, which is basically, or even a poll SCM, which basically it keeps checking for the repository whether are there any new changes in the repository. So this is more like every few minutes, few seconds, it keeps checking are there any new commits. If yes, it will trigger a build. So this is more a polling mechanism, and you can use one of these anytime to configure. So the next thing we will use is I'm just guessing. Give me a second. So other thing I didn't, which I want to cover is, we created, in the initial part of the session, we created a new agent, right? So if I go to manage Jenkins and nodes, we created a new agent called .NET. So how do we inform this particular job to always use, say, .NET agent to run the job, but no need to allocate a slave or a master in this case to build the job. You always want .NET agent to run. In that case, you go ahead and select restrict the project where it can run, and then you can specify the agent name that you want to always use. Right. So this will ensure that the master node will recognize this and always allocate .NET agent as a job as an agent to run the job. Then done this particular job. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. So now we have done the repository. We have seen the build triggers. Now there are a few additional settings where you want to clear. If you want to clear out the complete workspace every time there is a build. Right, you can do that, and you can add some more settings where if you want more logs, some more timestamp you can various settings. Then comes the core stuff where you have a build and you can add multiple steps in the build. So generally the CI pipeline, right, it will have, again, as I said, there's a course where if you want to understand a very basics of DevOps, go into my site and you will see a free course on DevOps. I'll ping the link to the course here. To the website, you can go ahead and register for the free course. And but here, every CI pipeline includes something like where you download the latest source code, you build the code, you generate the artifact, and you publish the artifact to a server. In between, we do some code reviews and unit testing and everything. But any CI pipeline, minimum it has to download the latest code, build the code, generate the output files, and publish it to a centralized server. So it's something like a 4-step minimum as a 4-step CI. So here each step is what you will configure. Now what we have done above is we have configured the download part. We said download this code, and we have configured which branch and which commit. Now we are going to configure, what is the steps we need to do. Now in this case, since it's a .NET code, I'm going to simply use the plugin which we installed and say build me a .NET using the MS build me the .NET code. So what it expects is it will either expect your CS proj or a solution file name. So if you go back to the source code, here this is the root, and you can see I have those in this particular case we have the solution file in the root itself. So I basically, we have to specify the name of the solution file. Example, if you have this, it's a relative path. So example, if you want to build individual project, and let's say if you want to build this particular CS project, you will basically you have to give a relative paths from the root. Example, you can say something src because this is the root, and then you have the src and then the folder name. So in my case, I'm right now just trying to build the solution file, and ms build expects you to specify additional parameters if you want to generate the artifact. Right now I'm basically going to do whenever there's a commit, and then whenever it is trying to run this step, I'm saying restore, which is your in .NET you have to download the latest packages using NuGet. So restore will take care of downloading the packages, and I'm saying build. So this is I can have this as a two steps. I can have one with restore, one with rebuild, but here I'm using single step. So what it does is it will download the latest code, go ahead and restore the NuGet packages and build to generate the output file. So now if I just do a apply and save, and if I trigger a new build, right? So now if you see whenever there's a build, you can go into the individual builds and you can go to console output to see what is happening. So these are all the detailed logs where it was able to get the source code from the Git, and then now it is trying to restore the NuGet packages using the command. Finally, you will see the build was successful. And in the backend, if you see this is a .NET agent remote folder which we selected. Now, if I go to workspace, it creates, this is the name of our job. If you see here and here, it downloads the latest code, whatever is the code which is available in that Git repository, and goes ahead and builds. So if you see here now, it says build is successful. And if I go into my remote and say source, and let's say I go to .NET code, and you will see the code is built successfully. Okay, so now here when this is this is one of the .NET code. Now here I can pass additional parameters, like you want to build in release mode, you want to build it for a x86 or x64, the CPU type, any CPU. You can always pass those parameters, and then you can go ahead and then pass them as a parameter and then build them accordingly. So this is, and then now we have built the code. Example, now how do I as a next step, as I said, after building we need to publish the artifact, which is your final output DLLs, right? So that can be your post build. After the build is successful, or after all the steps are done, you add something called a post build, where in this case, let's say you can see here are there many steps. I can either directly deploy to Azure Web App. I can take the unit test case and generate a report. I can do various. I can send email notifications. But here I'm going to use a simple archive command to basically, let me not use archive. So if I go here and yeah, I think archive file. I'll do an archive, and then I have to specify the path of the folder or the file that I want to archive. So that is again a relative path. So here I've just I have a path here. So this is the path where the output files are generated. So I'm going to just paste it here. Now again, all these things in a real pipeline, all these will be dynamic. You have a variable called configuration type, which is release, debug, and various others. So you will make it dynamic. But here in this case, I'm just trying to show how you can archive it. So now once I apply, again I'll say save, and I'll give one more build. So and build. So now if you see here, what is the difference is if I go to the previous build, it says build is successful, but uh, I cannot see the output files, or I use this pipeline to trigger another this job to trigger another build where I can use the output files. But if you go to number two, the build number two, you can now see all the files that were generated in the debug folder, and that is now part of the build job. So I can use this particular build number two to deploy into Azure app and say take the output of build as an input into your deploy step example. So this is one way to publish your artifacts. There are many ways. You will have generally you'll have artifact server and artifact path, but the idea being, you should be able to define your steps for your technology for your projects, and then finally go ahead and do your as a post build, go ahead and uh, publish your artifact. This is a simple pipeline for .NET.